Okay, we've got the developer tab set up here, so we're going to click on that. I'm going to record a bunch of steps now to print this bit of sheet out for us automatically. And so what I want is I just want this top bit of the worksheet printed out. I don't want the calculations at the bottom. So what you do to actually start record the macro is you click on this top bit here that says record macro. The first thing it's going to ask you for is a name. Now if you give it a name, something like, oh I don't know, print sheet, that's going to cause it a problem, and I'll show you why in a second. Let's give it as some sort of description. This prints, something like that. Okay, if I hit save, there are certain rules for saving macro names, and these are these rules you'll see across the whole computing world in general. It says here, the reasons could be it doesn't begin with a letter or an underscore. That's not a problem. It begins with a letter P. The name contains spaces or invalid characters. That's the problem here, is I've got spaces in there. And the third reason is that if you try to give it a name which is already used by Excel, then it's going to have a problem with that as well. So that's pretty easy to correct if I just delete that and type that print sheet. And this format here, where you capitalize all the subsequent letters of the word, is called camel case, and it's used throughout computing specifically to get around the problems of spaces in names. And in fact, if I was to give this a particularly stupid name, let's call it print sheet from this workbook, something like that. That would be an example of camel case. So you can sort of still read it. You can sort of bounce your eye along and still read it, but there are no spaces in there, so so Excel won't get upset. So that's basically camel case naming for you. Right, okay. The only thing you now know that tells you that this macro is running is this little sign up here has changed to stop recording. There's nothing else on the sheet that lets you know that the macro is running. So wherever you are, you won't actually see anywhere else that the macro is running. It's just developer and that thing at the top there says stop recording. So let's go through the steps now where that we would go through to try and set this up to print. We're going to highlight that block of things there, and then we're going to hit the Microsoft Office button in the top left. Press that. We're going to hit print, press that, and then we're going to, on the print dialog box, we're going to hit selection because we just want this top bit that we selected printed. We're going to hit preview. It's missing Thursday and Friday and it hasn't got grid lines, so we're going to page setup. Change that to landscape so it squidges it all in. Or we could have said fit to one page by one page wide by one page tall we wanted, and hit sheet, and we're going to hit grid lines. We're going to hit OK, and that should do us. Now at that point, I could actually hit print, and it would then go ahead and print it. But I prefer the whole printing macros to stop just at that point, because it just gives me a final. Because print is expensive, it just gives me a final chance to look at this and think, am I happy with how that's about to print out? Then I can hit print myself. But all of the macros done all of the fiddly work there of changing the whole spreadsheet around, so it's ready for me to print, and at that point I'm ready to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop the macro at that point. If I close print preview and if I hit stop recording, that macro is now actually sat there ready to run. So where is it? Well, if you click on this button marked macros here, you can have a look at it, and there it is, print sheet from this workbook. You can imagine that you can have a whole bunch of macros recorded in here. We've just got one at the moment, and in fact if I hit edit, now let's have a look at the instructions it recorded for us. Well, here's all the bunches of instructions it did. That looks like a whole mess of things here. Well, let's have a look here. Let's see what it did. It said with the active sheet page setup, it said make the left header blank, make the center header blank, make the right header blank. So you can imagine you could put things in there if you wanted to. Make the margins left, right, top, bottom, and so forth. Print headings, fonts. That was something that we altered. We said grid lines. We wanted to see grid lines. So it says print grid lines equals true. That was something that we set up. It's going to do it at 600 dpi. It's going to center it horizontal and vertically. We could make those true if we wanted it to be horizontal and vertical. Orientation, we changed that as well. We changed that from portrait to landscape. Paper size, it's left at A4. So you can go through these instructions and you would be able to read what's going on. It's not like it's written in Martian. You should be able to go through these things. You can imagine you can tweak these yourself. But that's basically all of the steps that it's recorded for us, this macro. So if I just close that down, go back to book one, let's go run that macro. And now there's various different ways of running this macro, which is what we're going to move on to next. But just for the purposes of testing it, let's just go to macros and just hit this top button here, run, and let's just see it go through its steps to take us to the print sheet. There we are, it's run, and it's got us all the way up to this finished sheet here, ready for me to hit print, and away we go. Now we probably would like that attached to maybe a shortcut key or a button. I'm going to show you that next.